Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Gillian Hayes, and I will be your host for the next hour and so. But we're going to wait just a moment or two as we load in the webinar. By now, after a few years of this, you're probably all very familiar with the process of waiting as the attendee count is going up. But we do seem to be slowing down. So I think that means we can probably begin. Again, thank you all so much for joining us from wherever you are in the world at whatever time of day it is, as well as to those of you who are watching this recording after the fact. Welcome and thank you. I'm Gillian Hayes, Vice Provost for Grad Education, Dean of the Grad Division here at UCI. And hopefully, if you need closed captions, you can see them. We also have an ASL interpreter that should be pinned on your Zoom that you can also see. So I want to start today, before we do anything else, congratulating you. We have an incredibly tight admissions cycle every year here at UC Irvine, and I am so impressed by the applicants that we get every year. The fact that you have been admitted to a graduate program here in the University of California is such a strong testament to your own academic, scholarly skills, your background, your experiences, and we are so thrilled that you might be joining us in the fall in what we call our grad eater family. So that's our graduate anteaters. And if you didn't know that we were anteaters, all the more reason for you to come and join us. We know that you've just gone through so much, and graduate school is a huge adjustment. So I'm hoping that today we can help you learn a little bit about our beautiful, wonderful campus, our strong, excellent scholarly community, all of our top tier programs, world-renowned faculty, our extensive professional development and health and wellness services that are all the things that make UC Irvine the wonderful place that it is. We just really take pride in all that we have to offer you and look forward to telling you a little bit about things. So over the next hour, I get to host this wonderful panel of experts who are going to answer your questions. You should feel free to ask a question at any time in the Q&A box on the Zoom. Sorry for those of you watching this after the fact. Hopefully someone has asked your question during the live session. We will do our best to answer all of those questions for you. With that, I'm going to start my introductions of our wonderful panelists here. They'll give you just a few minutes about themselves and the services that they oversee and support here on our campus. And then, as I say, we'll get to the question and answer period, which is always what people like best on our town halls. So let me start us off with Ruth Quinnan. She's our Assistant Dean for Academic and Student Affairs here in the Graduate Division, which means she's in charge of admissions, all of the services that help you get your degrees, a lot of professional development and other kinds of services, and so on. So over to you, Ruth.
Hi, everybody. Good day, whatever time of day it is. I'm really glad you're joining us and really excited to have you come to UCI. My name is Ruth Quinnan. I'm the Assistant Dean for Academic and Student Affairs, as Gillian said, and I oversee the admissions area, the academic services area, graduate academic counseling, graduate professional development, different workshops that are put on in our professional development area, which is the Graduate Student and Postdoctoral Scholar Resource Center on campus, which I hope you'll become very familiar with. And kind of a variety of other services. I often help students if they have questions or comments, or if they run into issues. If I can help, I would encourage you or anybody to contact me. I work very closely with students and with faculty and with academic unit staff, and I'm familiar with a lot of people across campus. So if there's anything I can do to help, I am very happy to do that. And I'd like to welcome you again.
Thank you so much, Ruth. So with that, let's move to one of the many awesome staff members that Ruth was just describing. Aimee Jiang is, many of you probably already heard from Aimee. She heads up our international student support here in the graduate division.
Hi, like Gillian said, my name is Aimee. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the International Student Support Officer here with Grad Division. You're going to hear from Archana later, who's going to talk about the International Center. They do all the immigration work as well as some programming for undergrad and grad students, but I specialize in programming for graduate students who are international students. One of those programs that I run is called the Graduate Interconnect Program. I'm going to share my screen here really quick so you can see our website. I will also put the link to this in the chat later. But Graduate Interconnect program is meant to help you as an international graduate student transition to UCI. We support you by getting you connected with a mentor who is a current graduate student. That way they can answer questions that maybe you're not getting from more departmental or registration specific questions. What is it like to be on campus? What's the weather like? What should I pack? Where can I get food? Where can I go grocery shopping for things that are familiar to me that might make me feel more at home in Irvine? So our peers are trained to help guide you through those kind of questions or help connect you with appropriate offices if you have more of a specific registration kind of question. In addition to that mentoring that you get from a grad student, we also have activities, panels very similar to this where our students will share their experience transitioning, as well as sharing their experiences with what it's like to be in Irvine or what it's like to be in the US. So they'll share all of that with you. And then we have some welcoming activities that we do in the fall quarter. That way you can start to build community, specifically with people outside of your department. So that's one of the fun parts about GIC is that we get to do things with people from all over campus, not just within our department or our programs. It is a registration-based program, so we do have a spot for up to 350 students to participate. I opened the registration today, so if you have already said, yes, I am coming to UCI, you are welcome to register for GIC today. On our website here, there is a short little link. It's just basic information so that we know how to get in touch with you. You can also email me if you have questions about the program or what kind of things the program can offer. And this year, we're going to be launching an Instagram account starting in early May. So you'll be able to check us out there as well. Outside of Graduate Interconnect, I am also just here to help our international graduate students transition. So if you just want to sit down and talk about how much fun you're having or how hard it is or how homesick you are always welcome to message me, to come into my office. I am located in the GPSRC. So I hope you become familiar with how to get here. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Aimee. And since she just mentioned her, why don't we next go to Archana Sheth, who is the Associate Director of the International Center, who again, if you haven't heard from already, you likely will, as you are probably going to need to do some paperwork, but she does more than paperwork. Over to you. Oh, you're on mute, Archana.
Oh my gosh,
There you are.
I'm so out of practice. Welcome everybody. We're really excited to welcome you to this session and also hopeful that you'll choose to attend UCI this fall. I work at the International Center. I'm the Associate Director there. So our center provides immigration compliance services for our international student population. So that includes graduate students, undergraduate students, our study abroad students, as well as visiting summer session students. So if you're planning to attend UCI, you will be working with our office to request your immigration documents. If you've already submitted your positive SIR, we are likely working on that information for you already. And so you will get communication from our office about the steps to kind of arrive to UCI this fall, starting from the visa application process, immigration processes that you need to take care of prior to arrival, and then also things that you should be aware of prior to your travel to UCI. We understand that the immigration climate has been constantly changing. It's been impacted by COVID. And so one of the things that we will continue to do from now until the time you arrive is really providing you written communication from our office about what to be prepared for, and want to ensure that you have a safe arrival to UCI to begin your program successfully. Throughout your program, we'll be here to support your academic journey and help you navigate the immigration climate and what it is that you need to do to maintain your compliance requirements. So anytime you have a question, even prior to attending UCI, if you have a question and are curious about immigration related needs that you may have specific to you or just in general have an inquiry, we have a lot of resources on our website, which I can link in the chat after. But we want to make sure that you have clarity on starting your journey here in terms of what's required as an F1 or J1 student. And then I do want to just highlight, I think a lot of my colleagues will also talk about this too, but in addition to communication that we'll do this summer, we will also have a lot of programs coming up this fall that we offer for transition, understanding immigration related processes, and offering workshops that are open to all of our students so that you have that knowledge as you move through your program. And then we'll also have some social events, so it's nice to get connected with the international student community. Our programs also include our domestic students to kind of have some of that cross-cultural experience amongst our student population. So I'll leave that there. If you have immigration related questions or are looking for places to find resources, feel free to put something in the Q&A and I'll try and get you to the right resources.
Awesome. Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Marcelle Hayashida, our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Wellness, Health, and Counseling Services, to give a bit of an overview of some of the comprehensive support that we have for our students in terms of thinking about them as whole people.
Thank you so much, Dean Hayes. I do have a little PowerPoint that I believe is being loaded, but first let me congratulate all of you on your acceptance to UCI, and we certainly look forward to seeing you and supporting you. Here we go. So it's an overview of all the very colorful things that we do throughout the year. I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm just going to talk about the offices that I oversee and that are here to support you. And obviously, we are here to answer questions live in real time, but I'm also available if you have a private question that you want to share and maybe direct to one of our offices. So I oversee the Counseling Center. This is a very small blurb about what we do, but we provide free on-campus counseling services, virtual and in person. They are short-term, time-limited, and if you need to go off campus for whatever reason, we have a list of referrals that have been vetted that we can support. We also have Disability Services Center. So some of you are coming from backgrounds where you have ADHD or perhaps a medical issue or disability. Maybe you have mobility impairments and you'd like to get a golf cart ride to your classes. We actually offer that. Lots of campuses do not offer that, in fact. But we can provide all kinds of accommodations and aids and support services. You do have to have some documentation of your disability. So that may be a test report or a doctor's note, but we can provide you with ongoing, permanent, and also temporary accommodations. The next slide talks to you a bit about Student Health Center. If you have SHIP, this is going to be your student health insurance plan. This is going to be your outpatient, fully accredited outpatient medical and dental clinic. We've got all kinds of things: x-rays, physical exams, preventative care, chiropractic, sexual health. And so that's going to be your facility for the time that you are here. The care office is a confidential and safe place for people who have experienced gender-based violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment, relationship abuse, and stalking. But you don't have to have experienced this in order to participate in the services. There are all kinds of, we've got a yoga program, we've got all kinds of healing programs, a clothesline project in April, things to be involved in the community if you want to help raise awareness about gender-based violence. This is a space for you. Next slide talks about campus recreation. And this is a beautiful facility. We've got an indoor track even that you wouldn't think we would need in California, but it does come in handy in the rainy season. We have a beautiful fitness facility, program services. We've got a teaching kitchen, all kinds of facilities available for you. The Center for Student Wellness and Health Promotion provides all kinds of activities around health promotion. So sexual wellness, we have a dietitian you could speak with, all kinds of services. We have massage chairs, a little relaxation room you can go in if you're feeling a little stressed out. You can refer your students, right, your undergrads, to this facility as well for kind of basic health information and education. Next slide, some of you may be bringing little ones to campus. And so please know that we have accredited childcare facilities for the youngest infants through 6th grades. We have after school programs as well. And this is for students, for community members, for employees, lots of childcare options available for you. We've got multiple centers for depending on the age of the child. And then we've got a social work office, again, for you or for the students that you're going to be teaching, for housing insecurity, for food insecurity, any type of stressful event that maybe doesn't require counseling, but might require case management. That will be your free service for those needs. The next slide, so those are all the offices I oversee. I wanted to just share a couple of things around system-wide wellness efforts, again, to demonstrate that it's not just a bunch of clinical services pieced together, but that we really are part of a system-wide network. And so we are part of the UC System-Wide Healthy Campus Network. We have also signed on to become a health promoting university, one of the very first campuses in the country to sign on for that. And so that means we're not just providing first class, again, medical facilities and medical care, but that we're really thinking about your holistic care around policies that are health promoting, right? Around integrating well-being into a syllabus, into pedagogy. So we're a campus really devoted to kind of holistic well-being, and we are very serious about that, signing on to that charter. We benchmark with other system-wide partners and national partners, and we also got about $1.7 million from the state to support equity in student mental health programs, which means, again, it's not just for certain kinds of people, but it's for all people. It's for helping students get to appointments when they can't afford to drive to their medical appointments off campus. It's for making sure that people feel seen and heard and included. So we're very committed to that. And the next slide I have just gives you a little sprinkling about what we've been doing just this past year to support equity in student mental health. Our plan is to hire a eating disorder social worker. We have a department coordinator for the Office of Social Work. Students have a Reclaim Mental Health conference every May during Mental Health Awareness Month that we've been supporting every year. There's a host of suicide prevention programs. We have a wellness symposium. We've been having speakers. There's a pedagogical wellness staff member that's been supported through these funds. Programs for undocumented students. We've been training staff about neurodivergent students, right? Folks on the spectrum, folks with ADHD. We'll be hiring a trans care specialist, so somebody who's very well-versed on the needs of our trans community. And lots of little things you can read, lots of colorful flyers. The last couple of slides, just to invite you to join us on social media. So the next slide is, again, how to find the counseling center's resources. So again, you may want counseling, you may want to be in a group, but you also might just need some online resources to teach you about sleep or about what's a psychiatrist and how does that differ from a psychologist. And we've got lots of resources online. And we also invite you to follow us in the last slide on social media. So I will answer any questions in the Q&A. If you've got some large questions, I'm happy to follow up with you. And again, congratulations and welcome to UCI.
Thank you so much. That was beautifully comprehensive as always. And for those of you that are monitoring the chat, you may see some links that have been getting dropped in there as people have been talking to point you to some of the resources that are being discussed. We do see the questions coming in. Some have already been answered, but we'll wait to answer some of them verbally until we're done with our quick overviews. So with that, let me hand you to, many of you are very worried about housing. This is probably the #1 question that we're getting this time of year. So over to our Director of Housing, Timothy Trevan.
Thanks, Gillian. And you can call me Tim.
Sorry, I don't know why I said Timothy just then. I don't think I've ever called you Timothy. We're
That's
having
okay.
a funny moment here, folks.
I heard my mother in my ear and I got all nervous. So, all right. Well, we are so looking forward to your arrival on campus and to the potential of having you live with us in one of our campus communities. The grad family housing staff and I are here to help you with your transition to UCI housing if you choose to live on campus. We do house about 4,300 graduate students and students with families in our 4 grad and family communities. And that's about 60% of all grad students. We have guarantees, as I'm hoping you're aware, we have guarantees for all of our students in PhD programs, our Masters of Fine Arts students, since that is a terminal master's, and for our law students, as well as for a couple of specialty medical programs as well. We do our best to get offers of housing to students without guarantees as quickly as possible. We've been greatly assisted in being able to offer more master's students and non-guaranteed students by the fact that we just opened last fall a brand new housing community that we call Verano Place 8, Phase 8, which houses 1,055 students in various unit types. So we've been able to, again, just greatly increase the number of master's students that we can serve. The most important thing for you to remember right now is that if you have a housing guarantee, make sure you apply by May 2 to retain your guarantee. Even if you're not, my advice, even if you're not convinced that you're going to want to live on campus, go ahead and apply just so that you retain that option. You will unfortunately lose your guarantee if you don't apply by May 2. So I encourage you to apply on time. We understand that you'll have to work through multiple issues as you prepare for your arrival related to visa and arrival date, and we can help you work through those nuances after you apply, but just make sure you get that application in by May 2. For non-guaranteed students, we encourage you to, as soon as you have committed, apply for the wait list as soon as possible, since we do serve the wait list on a first come, first served basis. I'm sure that there are many other nuanced questions that you may have, so happy to take those when Q&A time comes, or we do have a general assignment mailbox for any questions after the fact, which is gfhassign altogether at uci.edu, and I'll drop that into the chat. So thanks, looking forward to working with you.
Thank you so much, Tim. And last but not least, we do have our president of the current graduate student body here, Reggie Gardner, the Associate Graduate Students President, and they'll give you a little more info.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Reginald. I'm a 5th year informatics student in the School of Information and Computer Science, and I currently serve as the president of Associated Graduate Students of UCI. While my research has to do with online and in-person communities, what I do as the president of Associated Graduate Students is I work with almost every office across campus. I'll work with Tim, I'll work with Gillian, I'll work with Dr. Hayashida, every single center from campus police to housing, graduate division, faculty senate, and I meet with the chancellor as well as the president regularly. And all of this is to advocate for student issues. All of this is to ensure that every office around Irvine knows what we need, what we're looking for, and ways to make graduate life better. So if you have any problems at all, whether or not I'm president next year, feel free to reach out to AGS and we'll see if we can help solve them.
Thank you so much, Reginald. So we will take a moment while the media folks can catch up to go ahead and put everyone on screen. And now is the Q&A time of the talk. There's some questions that have already been answered, but I'm going to go ahead and ask people to speak those out anyway, because for the recording, And anyone who's not here, or maybe if they're listening to this on their phone or something else, they're not necessarily able to see what's going on in the chat. So one thing quickly, I want to say we got a couple of very specific questions about either deferrals or wanting some very specific things from the program. The best thing to do is check directly with the program. You should have gotten a name of someone who is your person to connect to through your admissions letter. If you did not, you can always email us at Graduate Division, and Derek will put the email in the chat, but that is gradapplicant@uci.edu. Let's see if I got that right. And you all can email the Graduate Division and we'll direct you in the right place. But generally speaking, you can email your program directly for questions about deferrals, advisors, any of those kind of very specific programmatic questions. I will warn you now, lots of programs do not allow deferrals, but some do. So it's worth asking, but no guarantees there. If there depends on why you need that deferral and other kinds of things. Okay, the next question I want to kind of ask people to speak out, even though this was already answered in the chat. So Marcelle, if you don't mind, this question we have about sort of health fees and the benefits, all the wonderful programs you just described, how do they get access to them? Do they need to pay for it, and so on?
Yep. So the health insurance plan does cost money. Your program may or may not cover that for you. So you do want to follow up with your program around that. Once you have health insurance, that you may have a copay for a particular medical service. Some services don't cost money, some services do. The counseling at the counseling center, though, that is completely free. Health promotion services are free. Childcare is not free. So there is a tuition for childcare. Social work services are free. So it really just kind of depends on the office. But in general, we do charge for childcare. We do charge for certain medical services. Access to the rec center is already part of your fees. But if you wanted to take a specialized yoga course or belly dancing or whatever, there may be a very nominal rate that you need to pay for access to that special course.
Perfect. Thank you so much. No surprise here, Tim, but we have a series of questions about housing. One of the biggest ones we always get is sort of the lease always shows July to June, but many of our students don't move in until later. So if you could talk a little bit about preferred move-in dates and when they need to start paying rent and those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I was actually typing an answer to the person who asked about single occupancy apartments too. So I'll answer it all kind of in one fell swoop. So you can, in your application, indicate your preferred move-in date and your preferred unit type. We do have single occupancy units, 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units, and 4-bedroom units. I always encourage students to apply for as many unit types as possible and to rank order them. We will do the best to get you what we call our best fit, which is the best fit between the unit type you want and the arrival time you want. We can't always nail it every time because there are so many moving parts, but we will do the very best we can to get you into the unit you want in the time frame you want. You also can decline your first offer if you would like to ask for another offer that you think might be better for your needs. I always encourage students to be very cautious about that, though, given all of the complexities. Often your first offer is the best that we'll be able to do. But if there are some nuances or some new information, please feel free to ask for a second offer. All those instructions will be sent to you when the time comes. And then the last thing is we understand that there are nuances and complexities with you getting your visa and your arrival date. So if you can't arrive before the start of classes, we will work with you to defer your housing offer to the beginning of winter quarter or whatever your arrival date is. So the key is just to let us know what's going on with you, and we will tailor as much as possible an offer to your needs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tim. We have a sort of combined housing immigration question that I'll send to both Archana and Tim, which is for our PhD students, obviously they have the graduate guarantee, and the master's students are not guaranteed housing, but we think this year at least probably have a pretty good chance of getting it. But in this particular case, this is a spousal situation in which one is PhD and one is master's. So there are questions about if they can share housing. I think that's a fairly easy yes. But then Archana, there's a secondary question of what they put for their living expenses in the I-20 if they're sharing housing.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the I-20 is specific to the individual and the program they're attending. So the living expenses and tuition and fees that are set for on our forms that are actually taken from our registrar's website. So they should be pretty well aligned in terms of the cost of the program you're attending, but that cost needs to be by individual. It would not change if you have a relationship.
Great. Thank you so much. We also have a question about off-campus housing, if we have any information that we can share about that.
Yeah, so on our website, there is a link to our off-campus housing resource webpage, which we call our Anteater Housing Network. And there you will find listings for apartments to rent, houses to rent, rooms to rent within houses and apartments, as well as people who are looking for roommates in their units that they're just looking for a roommate. So those listings will definitely heat up. There's a number of them right now, but they'll definitely heat up as we get into the summer. So I'd encourage you to look there. We are also very fortunate to have staff in other departments that can help students who are experiencing housing insecurity. So we have our basic needs hub, which Marcelle Hayashida also already talked about, as well as our social workers, that if you find yourself in a situation where you are unhoused, we can provide you with some resources there as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We also now I've lost it. Someone answered the question and therefore I've lost it in the thing. Orientation. Perfect. Aimee already answered it. So we'll make her answer it live. People are asking about orientation.
Yes, so we will be opening up a module. We have orientation is over Canvas. So we do it all virtual. That way you can participate earlier before you get here, have some stuff figured out, and then kind of have that information accessible to you throughout the years that you're here. The modules usually open in kind of mid to late August, but this year we will have an international page that will open up early as well. We don't have an in-person event planned for this year. Last year we did a resource fair. We might do something similar, but there's no like specific in-person graduate division orientation. Your departments may have different orientation expectations for you, so you always want to follow up with them. But GIC will have events throughout the beginning of the quarter to help you get to know other people. So you'll hear from me when those kind of events are coming up as well.
Thank you so much, Aimee. We have some questions about financial support for master's students. So I will start this response, but then I think maybe Ruth, you might want to jump in a little bit, or Reggie, of course, feel free as well. You know, our PhD students on our campus are all receive guaranteed financial support. Typically, that's a package that mixes some amount of, you know, maybe a quarter or a year of fellowship and then other kinds of employment opportunities, either as a teaching assistant or a researcher in a lab. The master's students typically are not guaranteed that kind of support, but they can be hired into those kinds of positions and often are offered some kind of fellowship support or other kind of financial support. Ruth or Reggie, do either of you have suggestions for how they might go about getting more information specific to their programs?
I would suggest contacting the program, the graduate coordinator in your program, and letting them know that you're interested in employment opportunities and funding opportunities, so that if there's anything available in the school or program, they can help you with that. They also should be able to point you to some resources across campus, because some departments will hire students who are not necessarily in their program to be teaching assistants, for example, if they have expertise in that area. So I'd highly encourage you to talk to the graduate coordinator in your program.
Yeah, I would second everything Ruth says. Aside from that, if you're looking for funding for conferences or other sort of activities, I would say reach out to AGS, as we have some funding set aside for those types of things.
Great, thank you so much. We've got a few questions about some detailed when do classes start kinds of things. I'll give you the broad strokes of this, which is typically almost all of our programs are on a standard academic calendar, which you can find on the UCI website. And I'm guessing as I'm talking, Derek is Googling that link, and we'll probably put it in the chat for you because he's good like that. There are a few programs, and the Masters of Applied Teaching, the Masters of Criminology, Law and Society, and the Masters of Human-Computer Interaction and Design are three that come to mind for me that do have some activities that start a little bit earlier, either formal classes or other kinds of things in the summer. If you're unsure, then I would certainly encourage you to reach out to your program directors, but and of course the law students are on a semester schedule. That's a whole other thing. But for the vast majority of our students, you're going to be on the standard UCI academic calendar. Ruth, did I miss any programs that we know start a little early?
I think that nursing may have, the Doctor of Nursing practitioners may have a class that starts a bit early as well.
Fantastic. And then related, I see Archana, I see you already answering in the text, but there is a student asking when you're expected to arrive on campus, given when classes may start and so on. I don't know if you want to give a broad answer to that.
Sure. If you're planning to attend UCI as an F1 or J1 international student, you'll be able to arrive to the US 30 days before your program start date. So getting that date of when your program begins, I'm sure you'll get a lot more communication from your program as well, but you can look at the program start date that's listed on your immigration document and then plan to arrive up to 30 days before that start date.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Tim, back to you. There's some questions about if a program is 15 months in length, or for that matter, 30 months, or anything else that's not easily divisible into the 12-month of a typical lease period. What happens at the tail end of their leases after they graduate?
Yeah, if your program, if for guaranteed students, we will work with you on tailoring an extension to a typical 12-month lease to get you to the end of your program. If you are in a master's program that requires extending beyond the typical 12-month lease, or often it's not exactly a 12-month lease because you may start your lease on August 1st. All leases end on June 30, but if you need extra time and you're in a master's program, you can apply for an extension, and to the extent possible, we will give you an extension past that period.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We've got a few questions about when they can enroll in classes. And I imagine that might be an Aimee question or even a Ruth question, or Reggie, if you can think back to when you were first a student, maybe it's a you question. I'm not sure who knows the answers to these, but as far as when they start enrolling for their fall course load. Oh, good. Reggie's raised their hand. Someone knows the answer to this question.
For incoming students, based on the academic calendar of next year, it'd be between the end of May and beginning of June. For continuing students, and it's still to be announced for new graduate students. So my presumption is mid-June to mid-July. But all classes should be available on the schedule of classes by the beginning of May, end of May, somewhere in May.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This is not a question, but I'm going to answer it as though it's a question in the hopes that it will wind up in the Q&A for everyone. But one of our incoming students, Sophia, has created a WhatsApp group for all of you to join if you would like to. Thank you, Sophia. And maybe, I don't know if Aimee or other grad division staff want to jump in there too. We can say hello also. But for those of you that are on the Zoom, you should be able to see that WhatsApp group now because in the answered questions area. Hopefully that worked. If not, we'll find a way to get that out to all of you later. There's an interesting question here about graduate minors, which I see Ruth is going to answer in the chat, but maybe can answer live as well. This was something I'm going to just admit to all of you now that confused the daylights out of me when I first came to UCI, what graduate minors and graduate emphases and so on are. So maybe Ruth can give us a little bit of background on that.
Sure. Typically at the graduate level, so if you're admitted to a PhD program, that's the program you are in. There is not like an undergraduate program where you have the ability to apply for a minor and a major. That's not the way it works at a graduate level. However, depending on the program, you may be able to earn a master's en route to the PhD. Many programs do that. Also, there are different concentrations within certain graduate programs, which mean that if you take enough of a particular set of classes, you can get a concentration within that program. Typically, master's students are in the program that they are admitted to, and they are not allowed to enroll in another program at the same time.
Great. Thank you so much. And then there was also some questions again about generally the on-campus jobs. So maybe Reg, do you want to give a little overview of sort of what the different kinds of work graduate students do on campus sometimes might include?
Sure. I guess this is mostly from the PhD perspective because my master's was at a different institution. During my PhD, I've worked as a research assistant, so that is usually under your advisor or a faculty member with a related research project. I believe now you are paid whatever the union rate is. I've also worked as a teaching assistant, so in that case, you're hosting small seminars in between the full lectures for whatever faculty member you're under. Usually you will find a time to meet with that faculty member and any other TAs to coordinate things like grading, teaching schedule, getting a look at the syllabus before students do, so you can familiarize yourself with the work. There are also graders who do a little bit less than TAs, so they don't do the section teaching in between lectures, but they do a lot of the grading, and those are usually for much larger classes, thinking 200 plus students may have a grader. And I think there are a couple other jobs on campus through housing, through AGS. So if you want to stay involved with students, and I'm unsure about the hiring practices of food services and other units on campus. So if someone else could elaborate on that, I'm sure there are opportunities around.
Yeah, Tim, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the housing. I forget what the title is, the sort of resident advisor type folks.
Yeah, absolutely. We do hire quite a few folks in the grad and family communities as center attendants, housing assistants, which are our version of RAs for the grad and family communities. We do have our community gardens, and we hire garden fellows to help run those communities. We hire programmers who do events and gatherings for grad students. We also have community councils for each of the 3 grad communities, and folks who are elected to those councils do receive compensation as well. And just a quick note that our housing assistants can actually be partners as well as students. So we find in some cases that our student residents are so busy that they don't have time to be housing assistants. But if you're bringing a partner with you, they are more than welcome to apply. And I think the last I heard is about 50-50 in terms of spouses, partners, and students. So lots of opportunities to work. In dining, there are opportunities. We don't see a lot of our grad students working in the dining footprint. It's mostly our undergrads that are working in dining, but those opportunities are available as well. Though you'll be able to access those once you get on campus.
Fantastic. And Archana, I just want to give you a chance to jump in case there's any particular concerns that we have for our international student population about any of those employment opportunities.
Thank you. I was just about to type something. So as an international student, we have information about on-campus employment on our website. So during the academic year, all international students are limited to 20 hours of employment per week. On campus, if your program is longer than 1 year and you have plans to maybe do an off-campus internship, it's also important to keep in mind that in combination during, let's say, your second year, the on and off-campus employment cannot exceed 20 hours during the academic year. And then during summer, it is possible to work full-time on or off or both on and off campus.
Great. Thank you so much. Really helpful. We've got a few questions in the chat that are in the Q&A that I'll just roughly refer to as fellowship and extra award questions. Unfortunately, I will not have a useful answer for you on any of those questions. Many of the fellowships that are offered to our incoming students are determined at the department level. And so those could be already offered to you in your initial offer letter, or they might be things that come in over the following weeks. It may also be that they have a very prestigious fellowship that they offer to one person a year. And if that person turns down the offer, then they might offer it to the second person and you might be the second person. So we have no real easy ability to predict when that kind of happens. So I just want to sort of acknowledge that set of questions that we see in the Q&A and let you know that if you're curious about a very specific fellowship, the best thing to do is reach out to the program and see what might be an option. I do also want to mention that once you arrive here, there are additional fellowship opportunities that you may be able to apply for at later times, especially for our PhD students. There are things like dissertation writing fellowships towards the end of your academic career and other kinds of things that you may be interested in available to you. We've got a question, another one for you, Tim. So many housing questions always at these town halls. If you have any thoughts about housing for family, especially someone with a 3-year-old child. And then Reginald, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to AGS's initiatives for parenting more broadly, or Marcelle, if you want to speak to some of the wonderful things that we do for our student parents on campus. I will just tell you, as a mother of young children, I love living in Irvine. It is a great place to parent young children. So that's my 2 cents, but maybe we'll run through Tim, Reginald, and Marcelle.
Yeah, so to start off with, we have a lot of families living in the grad and family communities. The 2 communities that really specialize in family housing are Verano Place and Palo Verde. Our 3rd and 4th options are Campus Village and Verano, why can't I think of VDC? What does VDC stand for? Help me out, folks.
Vista
Del Campo.
This is really bad when your housing person can't remember the names of your own communities. Those 2 communities are really primarily for single students, though we do permit students with partners to live there. But the 2 communities that I mentioned, Verano and Palo Verde, they have play areas. In Palo Verde, we have our Family Resource Center, which is just a wonderful opportunity for students with families and partners with families to bring kids. There are play groups, educational opportunities, seminars. There are games and play areas, and it's just been a tremendous asset. Relatively new. We just started this about 1.5 years ago. Relatively new to the community, but very well appreciated and utilized by our students. We have units that are really better suited for families. So if you have multiple children, we do have 3-bedroom units. And then of course we have 2-bedroom units also for students with families. The other thing that I wanted to take a sidestep before I toss it on to Marcelle is that Archana reminded me that we've had in the past issues with students looking to sites like Facebook for off-campus housing resources, and not all of those are completely we've had some students having issues with those sites. So I would really encourage you to use the Anteater Housing Network. And if you're going to use Facebook or Craigslist, just make sure you're checking with somebody at the university to make sure you're not getting scammed, to be quite frank.
Thank you for that.
And I would just say that the offices that report to me are really exclusively child care. And so again, the after school care, the infant toddler school care. I think Tim spoke eloquently about the Family Resource Center, which is really through housing, which does a lot of the support program. And interestingly enough, a lot of those things have been supported by the Equity and Mental Health Fund, because we do know that parenting and going to school and having young children, right, can impact mental health, and having a community of support can also impact your mental health. So we're delighted to be able to support a lot of the wonderful things that Tim described. And I did put the link to the child care services in the chat.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to add anything else about children? No? Okay.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, Gillian. I'll just say that a couple of our GIC mentors this year have kids and families with them. And so if you're looking for kind of more what it's like from a student experience, we can always partner you up with a mentor who also has kids and family on campus. They're really excited to share that opportunity with other incoming students.
Perfect. Thank you. We've got a few questions in the chat about pay scales. So some of you, especially if you're in our PhD programs, you may already have received some employment offer in your initial admissions letter and offer letter to come here. Apologies that those are a little bit unclear, as you may have seen in the news or may not, depending on what you read. We did just finish a pretty massive labor negotiation in late December with our the labor union that represents our academic student employees. That's the TAs and readers and our graduate student researchers. So we were scrambling a little to get those letters out to you. The pay scales are available online. Not every student and not every department is going to admit at the exact same initial point on that pay scale. It may be that you have past experience or you're in a particular field that admits at a different, or that starts the process at a different point. So I encourage you to reach out to your program if you're confused about where you start. And otherwise you can look at the scales and kind of know what the salary is going to be. The other thing that we see a lot of questions about is how do you move up in the increments? And so the basics of this are any quarter for which you're employed 25% time or more. So that's 10 hours. And most of our student employees are employed 50% time for the most part. Any quarter that you're employed 25% or more, once you stack up 3 of those, you move up 1 place on those scales. So it sort of happens more or less automatically, or should, and it's nothing that you need to really worry about, but that's kind of where those things will happen. The other thing I just want to note for you is the reason that you don't know what you'll make more than 2 years out is because we don't know what those scales are yet. The contract that we have with the union that will represent you if you take one of those employment positions is only until May 2025. So we'll have new scales following those contract negotiations. So that's why you can only sort of see out in the future. One never knows what will happen, but I can only tell you I have never seen a labor negotiation in which the salaries go down. So to the degree that that is helpful for you in thinking about what those scales show in the contract and so on, that may give you some idea. And apologies that we can't give you more detailed information than that, but that's as far as the visibility that we have kind of goes out. Okay, next question. Tim, back to you. I know you're shocked. When do they find out if they get on-campus housing?
That is a really good question. I am going to, if we can stick a pin in that, I will get that answer and I'll be right back with you.
Brilliant. So flag us when you come back. This is the beautiful thing about these hybrid town halls. We're all madly chatting people in the background to get answers. I also now have answers. The series of questions we got around the professional programs in the School of Information and Computer Sciences. So that's our Master of Software Engineering, our Master of Computer Science, and so on. I did just confirm they are all still admitting. So if you are waiting for admissions from any of them, they have not closed their process yet. Please be patient as they continue to go through those kinds of things. All right, one for you then, Marcelle. Tell us a little bit about UC, about the Fresh Hub.
Right, so that is operated by our Student Life and Leadership operation. A dean of students oversees it used to be called the Fresh Basic Needs Center, the Fresh Hub. And so the people I think are hearing them, remembering the word fresh. They have rebranded in recent months to UCI Basic Needs Center. I've put that in, I think, a couple of answers to questions. And so I think there was a question about, well, I heard groceries are free, and so groceries are not free to graduate students. But again, if you are experiencing what we call food insecurity, right? So you're having great difficulty meeting your financial needs, and groceries are difficult to pay for. And let's just keep it real. I know some questions have been around cost of living. Yeah, compared to other places in the United States, California has a very high cost of living. And so it is not unusual for our students to just be struggling a little bit regarding food, for some of our students to be struggling regarding food. And so it is a beautiful space that's relaunching. They have moved to a different location in the past few months, fresh produce, fresh vegetables, and that is available for graduate students, for international students. And there are some things that may or may not apply to international students, right? There's other ways that we can help our students apply for statewide benefits. But certainly if you qualify for this, there are phenomenal food resources available, and they do have other things than just food. So other kinds like diapers, I think you can get from the Basic Needs Center as well if you have children, so diapers for free. It's a phenomenal resource that UCI started many years ago, and the UCs have been pioneers in this space.
Thank you so much. We've got a question about writing and English language resources. And so let me turn first to Archana and then to Aimee to kind of talk about what both the International Center and Graduate Division offer. And then Reginald, if you don't mind talking a little bit about what you've heard from across campus, because not everything is obviously centralized.
Okay, I'll just chime in. I think if any of you had seen my typed answer, I think that there's two ways to look at English language classes. The International Center does host a English conversation program course. It's a 1.3 unit class. And it's actually a lot of fun because it's based on conversational English. So just becoming more comfortable with conversation about casual interactions, talking about current events, sharing cultural, having cultural exchange with students. So that is a great, I would say, informal type of language class that is offered by our office. I will let Aimee shed a little bit more light on other types of maybe more academic related English support that the university has.
I was trying to find the website. We do have a couple courses that usually I get information during the summer, and I will send that out to our list of incoming international graduate students just so that you all have kind of the information on signing up. But there are a couple different kinds of courses that are called like academic English courses that you would be able to register for in the first quarter or sometimes in the winter or spring. I know some students want that first quarter to just kind of settle in, and so they do offer them throughout the year, so you're not tied to having to do it right away. We also have, I know some people have mentioned bringing in families or partners. I've heard great things from the Family Resource Center from Housing, that they have some groups of partners and families that come together and have like a conversational group too, so that's always there for maybe partners that you're bringing in. And then, yeah, just getting to know people outside of your department, outside of your home on campus. We always encourage people to go to like the coffee hour that the International Center provides, to come to the GPSRC and do certificate programs, maybe for public speaking, or if you're a PhD student who really wants to TA, always recommend our programs here at the GPSRC because they can help overcome some of the, I think sometimes the barrier is confidence in speaking, and so those programs can really help with that as well.
From students, I hear about the academic English course a lot. A lot of students say it's really helpful. Some other folks rely more on their social connection, so making a lot of friends in their department or elsewhere and looking over each other's work. I know the humanities has an academic course as well, more focused on academic writing. So if you have a conference paper or a publication that you're looking to improve, that might be a route, but I assume most departments have something of this, something like this in one form or another. I know informatics does in ICS. I know the humanities does. I think philosophy does as well. My roommate was a philosopher like 2 years ago, so he told me about it. Not sure about everywhere on campus to a T, but look to your advisor, look to the staff in your academic department and ask around, and you will be able to find someone to help.
Thank you so much. Okay, Ruth, this one's for you because I lose track of our various English language testing rules on a regular basis, and I'm hoping that you remember better than I do. But we have a question about taking the TOEP test at UCI, if they took an IELTS exam or any specific requirements that might exist for any English language testing here.
So students can take an IELTS or take a TOEFL, basically in order to be eligible for admission in their undergraduate or master's degree from an institution that, according to the World Higher Education Database, or WHED for short, lists that institution as having instruction solely in English. So that's for admission purposes. There's not a time limit on that, and both undergraduate and master's programs qualify for a waiver of English proficiency, or that you are qualified based on that, that you have sufficient English proficiency to be admitted. However, for teaching assistants, there is a bit more stringent of a requirement for English proficiency because we want undergrads to be able to get a great educational experience too. But for that, you have gotten your undergraduate degree. Hang on a second here. Sometimes my video makes my voice a little broken up. If you get your undergraduate degree within the past 5 years at an institution that, according to the World Higher Education Database, shows that instruction is solely in English, then you have demonstrated sufficient proficiency in English to qualify to TA.
Great, Thank you for that very detailed response. I knew Ruth would be able to keep up with the details. Send us an email, though, if there was anything about that that was confusing, and we can help you with any additional information regarding English language. So we did have a question about recreation services. We have beautiful facilities for working out, going to the pool, all of the rest. And there's questions about fees for access.
So we can also drop the campus recreation website in the resources as well, but your basic access is covered by the student services fees that you have already paid. But again, specialized courses will cost additional money. So if you want to take a yoga class or F45 class or other sorts of things, but you can get into the pool, into the locker rooms, lift, go on a treadmill, all of that is already covered by the student services fees that you would have already paid.
Fantastic. And
in
those
addition-
fees go ahead.
Please.
I believe if you're not taking a course over the summer, there is a small fee for the 3 months of the summer. I think it's like $30, which AGS is trying to resolve, but I think we should be open about it.
Thank you for that. I always forget about that fee. And I will just say that typically, even when we do have fees like for those special classes or over the summer and so on, they're often at a very good rate for the quality of service that you're getting back. But absolutely, you should always check on those fees so that you're not surprised by them. We unfortunately do not have anyone on the call who knows about transportation, although there is a question about it. I'm going to hope that maybe Tim knows the answer just because he knows the campus pretty well and works with the folks who do transportation to some degree. But if you don't know, Tim, no need to answer. But if you can tell us a little about the buses.
I know so precious little about the buses, so I'm no help. But if I can divert, I can tell you about housing assignments and when they'll be sent, which is that for students with guarantees that you'll be receiving those in June or July. And then for students without guarantees, we will start sending them out in June and continue until all spaces are filled, which is usually about September. But I'm sorry, I don't know really anything about the buses. Sorry about that.
No worries. Anyone else know anything about the transportation on campus? Oh, Amy's
Yeah.
saying.
I was going to say,
she knows
Reggie, you can
something.
go ahead first.
Yeah, I can hop in. I think on campus, right now, there are 3 routes around campus. There's one around the main campus. It's the M line. I think the M is usually in green. That'll really help a lot. And it travels from the back of ground housing and around campus sort of in a circle. So hits most departments. The A and the N often travel around the front of campus. So where the bridge is between main campus and Campus Drive, or I forget the location across with all the food stores and whatnot. And also travels to all of the off-campus housing. So Camino del Sol, Visa del Campo, et cetera, et cetera. So those buses are all free. I haven't had to show student ID, and they get you around campus in around 15 to 20 minutes. And I believe they come every 10 minutes. I don't know about local transportation. If you're looking to go to Santa Ana or any of the other beautiful places around, you may have to look for more information.
I will say GIC does a whole thing on transportation because we do know, especially for those of you that maybe haven't been in the US before, or you've not been to California, you've heard horror stories of traffic here, and it's true, traffic can be really bad. Buying a car can be really confusing. So we've got blog posts and we'll do a panel that will talk about those kinds of things. I live in Irvine, not far from campus. I walk or bike most of the time to work. You see a lot of people doing that. We have a lot of bike trails that kind of go through Irvine. I bike to the grocery store sometimes when it's not raining like it is right now. So thinking about those things, there are definitely other opportunities if you're not sure you want to get a car or go through getting a driver's license. That can be a process. So those are pretty common. I will say the train system isn't as great as maybe some of the places that you all have lived. But if you want to go to LA, you can take a train. It just might not be the most convenient. I see a lot of students using apps like Uber and Lyft and trying to carpool with friends if they're going places. Similar is trying to get from LAX if you're flying internationally to UCI can be a bit of a trek. And so there are different things that we would recommend, like taking an Uber or a Lyft can be really expensive. Maybe try and see if other people are traveling at the same time as you and try and coordinate your Uber Lyft to campus. But we will have a whole email on that from GIC, and we will definitely talk about it throughout the summer.
Thank you so much. And the last resource that I'll mention for those that don't know of it is we do have a lot of Zip cars on campus. So that's an app that you can sign up for, and then you can borrow a car for an hour or a day or however long you might need. So if you don't want to take a car driven by someone else, but in fact you want to drive yourself, that's another option that you can sign up for. So we have a question that's very specific about possible TA positions outside of one's department, but I'm going to make this a little broader, which is if you're interested in a TA-ship in a department or a program other than the one that you're in. And what I'll say to you is, for the most part, TA positions are handled by individual schools. Actually, entirely they're handled by individual schools. But in some cases, those individual schools are happy to accept applications from the outside. Probably the most prolific of these is the School of Information and Computer Sciences, which has such big undergraduate enrollments that they do typically struggle to fill all of their TA slots. So if you're in another school, not in Information and Computer Sciences, there is a general application that you can sign up for to apply for those positions. But in other cases, you may need to, once you get here, ask your advisor who they know in that other department and if they can reach out and so on to help connect you, because those are fairly localized decisions. We don't have sort of a central clearinghouse for those kinds of positions. Similarly, research positions, particularly for our master's students who maybe want to get involved in research, I really encourage you, when you get here, start talking to faculty, start talking to the other graduate students, including the PhD students. It may be that a faculty member has an opening in their lab for a master's student, and often you can find out kind of what their advising style is or what's available by talking to the other students. They're often the best resource that you might have. And I'll give my little plug for getting involved with AGS. One of the wonderful things I see with our associate graduate students is that they get to know each other through the AGS councils, and then they'll do collaborative research projects. They'll find each other jobs. It's a really great network that I encourage you to get involved in. Let's see if anyone wants to add anything to that question. No? All right. We have another very specific question in about final official transcripts. We're going to start sending you a series of very aggressive emails trying to get those transcripts from you. Technically, we need them in by fall quarter, by the start. But as Audra, our director of admissions, has written into the chat, we can work with you if that's not going to work. If there's some sort of reason, disruption in the country where your undergraduate was from, or other kinds of reasons, we can work with you on that. But in general, we'd like to see those before the fall quarter. Okay, with that, I'm going to declare victory. We have answered or given up on every question you've sent us at this point. So I just always like to close this quickly with letting our panelists give just a few words, very, very short, any final advice that they have for you, or any words of wisdom, or any last pitches to try to get you to agree that you want to come here and join us as Anteaters in the fall. For my panelists, I'm going to go in the order you are in my screen, which is not the same order I called on you for introductions. So just to mess with your heads a little bit, you get a surprise of when I'll call on you. But Aimee, that means let's start with you.
Yeah, I would say coming to grad school can be a really overwhelming decision, and just coming to UCI and maybe leaving your home country, maybe being in California for the first time, it can all feel really overwhelming. So using your resources, you've learned about them today. If you join GIC, you'll continue to learn about some of the important resources. Take advantage of them. A lot of them, like we've talked about, are free. So conversational groups, programming that the International Center does, everything that Marcelle oversees, which is a lot of things on campus for you, really take part in those. Don't wait to take part in them when it's like in a crisis. Use them early and often, and get connected as quickly as you can, because having a good support system is really important.
Thank you so much. Archana, over to you.
I'm going to echo a little bit of what Aimee said, which was we are definitely aware that it's a huge commitment and a big step to leave your home country and come to the US for your studies. So the one thing I would want all of you to know is that UCI is here to support your academic journey. One of the things that I think our campus is really good at and very strong about is the communication we have with one another. So if you need resources, know that if you go to an office and maybe they're not the office to assist you, that office will get you connected to the proper resources for whatever it is you have concerns about. So please keep that in mind. And we'll try and get you to where you want to be. But I hope that you choose to come to UCI. It's really the best.
Tim, over to you.
Yeah, just to echo that we are here to help you. It is a complicated process, and yet we have a lot of safety nets for you in terms of our staff being ready to help and our processes being really tailored to help you transition successfully to UCI. And then again, just remember that you can reach out by email to gfhassign altogether at uci.edu, and we will be happy to get you answers to any questions as soon as possible.
Reginald.
UCI is great. It's been great for me for the last 5 years. And I think that one of the things that has been most important about my experience is meeting new people and making new friends. Knowledge and grades are always the goal, but I think that building the connections that expose you to new things and new people and new experiences is just as important. So I hope that I get to meet every single one of you in like 5 or 6 months.
Marcelle.
I would just say, it's really important to do the best that you can to take care of yourself, right? You're going to be coming over here and eating strange foods. And so you're going to want to figure out, what are the grocery stores that are going to meet your needs, right? Who can you go with? You're going to want to figure out, where can you take a walk, right? Where can you take a hike? Where can you go see some beautiful scenery? Where can you go to a museum? Get some culture. This is the long haul for you. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And so really do look into some practices that are going to enhance your well-being. I did a PhD program myself sometime in the last century. And, that's where I discovered yoga. That's where it started for me, and it's been a decades-long practice for me, because I needed something to cope with low back pain, because I was doing this all the time, but also for emotional well-being. So please think about the long game here and behaviors and practices you can engage with that can sustain your long-term health.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. I want to agree with all of our wonderful panelists. Graduate school is very hard, but you can all do it, or we would not have admitted you, I promise. I see the wonderful applications that we admit, and you are all very, very talented. I want to just close with my final recommendation to you all, which is, if you have any detailed questions about things like tuition and fees for a specific program, or how do I become a TA in a specific school or a specific program, reach out to the program director for that program. So that's Jessica Shanahan for MCS and Connie Chang for MSWE, since I see a lot of questions about those two programs, but I won't name off all 150 of our graduate program directors on campus. If you don't know who that is, you can certainly ask us in the graduate division, but probably there is a name of a person that you've been corresponding with somewhere, somehow, and those local contacts are really going to be able to answer a lot of those detailed, specific questions you have for those programs. And thank you, Audra. Our Director of Admissions is putting in the chat to remember you can log into your student portal on our admissions system, and that will have detailed program information as well. And so that's probably your best first step. But we know that there's going to be more questions that come up that you didn't have a chance to ask today, and just don't be shy. Reach out to them, reach out to us. We're here to help you and answer questions. And I share everyone else's enthusiasm for seeing you here in person in September. No more global pandemics. We're going to have you here. We're really looking forward to it. And thank you all so much, especially those of you for whom this is the middle of the night. We really appreciate you taking the time out to come and see us today, and hope to meet you in person very soon. Have a great afternoon, evening, morning, etc.